My name is Nathan Cole, and I was blindsided the day my life fell apart. I'm 39, and until that moment, I thought I had everything I needed. A good job as an architect, a home I'd worked hard for, and most importantly, a family I thought would always be mine. It was late on a Thursday night when Jessica, my wife of 18 years, asked me to sit down. She didn't look like she was about to tell me she had cancer, or that our lives were about to change in a way neither of us could have imagined. She just asked me to sit, her voice colder than I'd ever heard it before. "Nathan, I think it's time we're honest with each other," she said, her eyes avoiding mine, staring down at the coffee table in front of her. I had no idea what she was going to say, but I didn't think this was it. I don't think I can do this anymore." She kept her voice steady, but I could hear the trembling in her words. She was trying to control it, trying to pretend she hadn't just dropped a bombshell into our living room. I felt a laugh bubble up in my throat, but it wasn't funny. "What do you mean? What are you talking about?" "I'm serious, Nathan. I've been thinking about this for a long time now," she said, still not looking at me. "I want you to leave." My stomach twisted in knots, but I didn't move. I couldn't. Leave? Just like that? Her lips pressed into a thin line, and finally she looked me dead in the eyes. "Yes, just like that. I don't want to do this anymore." I stood up, but I couldn't bring myself to walk away. I was frozen in place. The room felt like it was closing in on me. Jessica took a deep breath, her hands trembling as she slid a pile of papers across the table. Divorce papers. She didn't even have the decency to speak the word out loud. "Here," she said. "You don't need to sign them if you don't want to, but I think you know what's best. We both do." "Jessica, this doesn't make sense. We've been through so much." My mind raced. How had we gotten here? She wiped her eyes, still looking everywhere but at me. "There's no other way. I've met someone. His name is Chad." The words hit like a slap, hard and unrelenting. Chad. I couldn't even wrap my head around it. The man had been coming around for weeks now, someone who Jessica had grown close to. But I didn't know it was this close. I could feel my face burning, my chest tightening. But I was trying so hard to stay calm. I grabbed the papers, folded them, and stuffed them into my pocket without a word. "I'll leave," I said, my voice almost a whisper. "I'll pack a suitcase," I muttered as I made my way to the bedroom, my legs feeling like lead. Everything in me wanted to scream, to break something. But I didn't. Not yet. I was too numb. I grabbed a bag and started filling it with clothes, my hands moving automatically. A shirt, jeans, a jacket. The memories of everything we'd shared, from the first time we kissed to the way we built our life together, began to feel like someone else's. She hadn't followed me into the room. She didn't need to. She had already made her decision. By the time I finished, I had nothing left to say. I stepped out of the house, dragging my suitcase behind me like it was a weight I couldn't shake. The door shut behind me, and that was it. I could hear Jessica's voice calling my name, but I didn't turn back. I drove for what felt like hours, my mind replaying our life together. The kids, our trips, the house we'd worked on, the little moments I'd never thought would slip away. But now, the only thing I could feel was the numbness. How could I not have seen it coming? The lies, the secrets, the way she'd turned away from me, from us, so easily. The next morning, my phone buzzed. "Mr. Cole?" A voice on the other end said. "This is Agent Lauren Grant with the FBI. We need to talk about your wife's involvement in some criminal activities." My heart stopped. I almost dropped the phone. What are you talking about?" "I'm afraid your wife's boyfriend, Chad, is under investigation for financial crimes, and we believe your wife might be involved too." I stood there, in complete disbelief. This was not happening. I had just lost everything I thought I had, and now it turned out my wife had been living a double life. I ran my fingers through my hair, trying to process the gravity of it all. A federal investigation? Chad? Jessica? This was beyond betrayal. This was something much darker than I could have ever imagined. "Agent Grant," I managed to get out. "How bad is this? We'll need your full cooperation. There's more going on here than we can talk about over the phone." And with that, my life as I knew it crumbled. I didn't know what I expected when I left Jessica, but it certainly wasn't this. The emptiness that followed felt like it was swallowing me whole. At first I thought I'd find clarity, some sense of closure, but all I had was a churning sense of betrayal that wouldn't go away. I stayed with a friend for a few days, someone who offered me the kind of quiet I needed, a place to retreat from the world and from my thoughts. But there was no escaping the truth, no matter how many times I tried to sleep it off or distract myself. The FBI agent, Lauren Grant, called again that afternoon. She was calm, collected, everything I wasn't. "Nathan, I have more information about your wife and her involvement with Chad," Agent Grant said, her voice steady. "Chad is under investigation for wire fraud and several other financial crimes, and we believe your wife is involved as well." I felt sick. The numbness I'd been feeling since I left Jessica deepened, mixing with the rage I couldn't seem to suppress. All these months, all these years, I thought I knew the woman I was married to, but she had been hiding something far more sinister than just a secret affair. Agent Grant continued, "We've uncovered that Chad has been using fraudulent financial schemes to siphon money, and it looks like Jessica might have been complicit. She may have helped him launder money through their accounts." I wanted to scream. Instead, I asked, "Are you sure? Are you sure she's involved?" "Based on our evidence, yes, but we need more. We need you to help us gather anything you can. Your expertise in cybersecurity could be useful." I put the phone down after the call ended, my head spinning. I couldn't process the weight of it all. Jessica, the woman I loved, was involved in something this dark. It was too much. But in that moment, I knew something had to be done. I had to stop being the passive observer in my own life. I couldn't let her ruin everything, including my son's future. I got to work. Using my knowledge of cybersecurity, I dove into their shared accounts, their online activities. It was painful, but necessary. My hands trembled as I uncovered evidence of wire transfers, accounts set up in fake names, and documents showing that Jessica had been involved in some of the most elaborate financial fraud I'd ever seen. Each document I uncovered was a weight I couldn't seem to shake off, but the more I dug, the clearer it became. This wasn't just an affair. This was a betrayal on a level I couldn't have anticipated. Jessica wasn't just a victim. She was an active participant. By the time I had all the evidence I needed, I knew what I had to do. I had to take this information to the authorities, but I couldn't just hand it over. I wanted her to understand that I had seen everything, every lie, every manipulation. I sent the files to Agent Grant, every bit of evidence I had gathered. I knew that, with this, Jessica's world would collapse. But she deserved it. She deserved to face the consequences of her actions, even if it broke me in the process. As I hit send on the last file, I felt a strange sense of power. It wasn't a victory, it wasn't justice, but it was something. Something that would make sure Jessica wouldn't get away with everything. Something that ensured she wouldn't drag me down with her. The days following Jessica's cold dismissal dragged on like I was living in a haze. She had walked away without even blinking, and here I was trying to piece together the wreckage of my life. But I couldn't deny it. Things were starting to turn. I was beginning to feel something that I hadn't in a long time. Control. The FBI had contacted Jessica directly, and I overheard it all in the diner. I was sitting in a booth by the window, absent-mindedly stirring my coffee when my phone buzzed. I glanced down at the screen. It was a call from Jessica. I didn't pick up. Not this time. Instead, I set my phone on the table, watching the rain tap against the glass as I waited. A moment later, her frantic voice broke through the stillness of the diner. "Nathan, please pick up the phone," she said. I could hear the desperation in her voice. "You don't know what's going on, but I need you. I don't know how to fix this, but we can still work something out." I leaned back in the booth, a strange sense of satisfaction creeping up my spine. For once, Jessica wasn't in control. I wasn't her fallback anymore. When the call ended, I allowed myself a moment to smile. She didn't even realize the extent of what was happening. The FBI had issued a warrant for Chad's arrest that morning. The investigation had hit a breaking point, and I had a front row seat to watch her world start to crumble. I knew what she wanted. She wanted me to step back into my old role, to clean up her mess, to fix it all. But I couldn't do that anymore. Not after everything. Not after I saw what she had become. I was still processing everything when the idea hit me. If Jessica was going down, I wasn't going to let her take everything with her. I had to protect Tyler, our son. The one thing I could control now was ensuring his future was secure. I didn't waste any time. That evening, I transferred every last penny from our joint bank account into a trust fund for Tyler. It wasn't just a financial safety net. It was my way of making sure Jessica couldn't use him or me anymore. The money was locked down tight, and it was too late for her to get her hands on any of it. Jessica tried to call again that night, and the night after that. Each time, I ignored it. There were no more explanations, no more promises. She didn't get to manipulate me anymore. I kept my distance, focusing on Tyler and the life I still had to build. He was the only one who mattered now. When Jessica left a message that last time, her voice was frantic, broken. "Nathan, I'm sorry. Please. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. I made a mistake. Please, just talk to me." But I couldn't bring myself to feel anything. There was no anger, no hatred, just a quiet resolve. She had made her choice, and now I was making mine. I turned off my phone and sat down at the kitchen table. I'd already made the decision that everything between us was over, and I wouldn't be going back. The closure I had been waiting for had finally arrived. There was nothing left to say. The news about Jessica's criminal activities hit me harder than I expected, even though I had prepared myself for it. Agent Grant had called again, this time with the details I had been waiting for. Jessica's name was tied directly to money laundering, money that had flowed through our accounts, transferred out to shell companies and back again, masked as legitimate business deals. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I had always known Jessica wasn't perfect, but this? I had underestimated how far she'd go. It wasn't just about the affair with Chad. She had been using me, using our life together, as a cover for something much worse. I didn't know what to do with that information at first. It felt like a betrayal I could never have prepared for. The woman I'd shared everything with, the mother of my son, was a part of a larger conspiracy that involved criminal activity, deception, and manipulation on a scale I couldn't even begin to comprehend. I spent the next few days watching the news, waiting for the inevitable. And when it came, Jessica's arrest was all over the TV. They had issued a warrant for her, along with Chad. They were partners in crime, and now they were both being dragged into the public eye. I didn't feel a rush of satisfaction. Instead, I felt a dull ache in my chest, a mix of relief and something much darker. I had lived a lie for years, and now the truth was spilling out for the whole world to see. But Jessica had brought this on herself. She had made her choices, and now she would pay the price. Despite the whirlwind of emotions, I focused on what mattered. Tyler, my son. He needed me now more than ever. I made sure he had everything he needed. He had no idea what was going on, and I wasn't about to burden him with the chaos. For the first time in months, I felt like I was getting a grip on things. I focused on spending time with Tyler, taking him to his soccer games, making sure he didn't feel the weight of everything that had happened. The last thing I wanted was for him to feel like his world was crumbling too. In the quiet of those moments, I realized I was starting to heal. I had always put Jessica first, always tried to make her happy, to fix everything. But now, I had to rebuild my own life. I was a father first, and that meant putting my son's well-being above everything else. As for Jessica, I knew she would keep trying to contact me, but I refused to let her back into my life. Every call, every message I ignored. I wasn't her safety net anymore. Not now, not ever. I started re-engaging with things I had abandoned over the years. Working out at the gym, reading books I hadn't had time for, and even picking up some of the hobbies I'd pushed aside while trying to keep my marriage intact. It was a slow process, but I was taking back control. The bitterness I felt towards Jessica didn't go away overnight. But it wasn't anger anymore. It was something much quieter. It was the understanding that our relationship was over, and I had to let go. I had already started rebuilding my life, piece by piece. And as Jessica's name flashed across the news again, I realized I didn't need closure from her. I had already moved on. Now I was focusing on Tyler, and on becoming the man I was always meant to be. It's been weeks since Jessica's arrest, and the world around me is still adjusting to the fallout. The whispers haven't stopped, but they no longer affect me the way they once did. People I'd considered friends, acquaintances, even distant relatives. Everyone had something to say. Some of them offered their sympathies for what I'd been through, while others turned their backs, choosing to side with Jessica. I never expected to see so clearly how fractured my relationships with them were, but now I knew. I spent most of my days focused on Tyler. His world had been turned upside down, and the last thing I wanted was for him to feel like his life was consumed by the chaos his mother had caused. So I made a point of being there for him, picking him up from school, attending his games, making dinner together. We started taking walks after school, just talking about anything that didn't involve his mother or the mess she had left behind. I wanted him to feel safe again, to know that life could still be good, even when everything else felt uncertain. It was during one of these walks that I got a message from Brittany, Jessica's sister. I hadn't heard from her since everything had imploded, and honestly, I didn't expect to. But there it was, a text, simple and apologetic. "Nathan, I'm so sorry for everything that's happened. I had no idea what was going on, and I regret that I didn't see it sooner. I wish things had turned out differently." I sat on the bench at the park for a long moment, my phone in my hand, reading and rereading her message. I hadn't expected an apology. I wasn't sure I even wanted one. But the truth was, it didn't matter anymore. My focus had shifted. I typed a response, my fingers steady as I tried to put into words what I had been feeling for weeks now. "Thank you, Brittany. I appreciate the apology, but I've come to realize that I need to focus on rebuilding my own life. I can't let the past dictate my future." I pressed send, then stared at the screen for a long time. The anger I had been holding on to for so long started to fade away, replaced by a sense of clarity I hadn't known I needed. I wasn't angry anymore. I was done being angry. The betrayal, the lies, it wasn't worth holding on to anymore. Not for Jessica, and certainly not for anyone else. My life, my peace, was mine to rebuild. That night, I sat with Tyler at the dinner table, just the two of us. The silence between us wasn't uncomfortable, just comforting. I could see in his eyes that he was adjusting. He was becoming stronger too. We were both moving forward, together. We talked about small things, his upcoming school project, the weather, a joke he heard at school, and for the first time since everything fell apart, I felt like we were finally getting back to normal. The past was behind us, and I had no intention of ever letting it control me again. I had spent so many years living for someone else, trying to keep Jessica happy, to maintain a marriage that had been built on illusions. But now, I was living for myself, and for Tyler, and that was enough. Jessica had already made her choices, and now she was facing the consequences. But I didn't need to carry that burden anymore. As for the people around me, those who had sided with her or stayed silent, I wasn't going to let them hold me back either. I had no idea what the future held, but I was no longer afraid of it. It wasn't about revenge or redemption anymore. It was about finding peace, about reclaiming what was mine. And in that moment, as I watched Tyler talk animatedly about his day, I realized something important. I had been broken, but now I was whole again. I hadn't planned on visiting the cabin. It wasn't something I thought I needed to do, but something about it called to me. A place once full of warmth and love, now tainted with the bitterness of betrayal. I drove there alone, the familiar route offering no comfort. The trees lined the road like silent witnesses, the same way they had when Jessica and I first came here. This was where we had made promises to each other, where we had hoped our future would unfold. But now, it was just another chapter of my life to close. I parked outside the cabin and sat for a while, staring at the wooden door. The house was quiet, as if waiting for me to make the next move. Part of me wanted to walk in, relive those memories of summer nights by the fire, or the mornings we spent planning our life. But another part of me, the part that had fought to move on, felt the weight of everything that had happened. The door creaked as I opened it, and I stepped inside, the air smelling faintly of dust. The living room was unchanged, the same furniture, the same photographs on the walls. For a moment, it felt like nothing had changed, like I was stepping into a past that hadn't been shattered. But then the memories hit me, all at once. The laughter, the arguments, the moments of happiness, now tainted by everything I had learned about Jessica. I walked through the rooms, each step a reminder of what was lost. It was in this space where I had once dreamed of growing old with her, of building a life together. But now, the walls seemed to close in on me, pressing the weight of those dreams onto my chest. I couldn't stay here any longer. The past wasn't something I could hold on to forever. It was time to let go. I walked back to the front door, feeling the tension in my body rise as I reached for the key in my pocket. This cabin, this place that had been a symbol of hope and connection, was now just a relic of a broken future. With a final glance back, I locked the door behind me, the sound of the bolt sliding into place echoing in my mind. I didn't need to keep running back to the past. I had my future to think about, and it wasn't tied to the woman who had destroyed everything we had built. As I walked back to the car, I felt a shift in my perspective. I wasn't just moving away from my past. I was moving forward into a life I could control. It wasn't about forgetting everything that had happened. It was about realizing that I could reclaim my own happiness, my own peace. Tyler was waiting for me at home. That thought brought me comfort. We were in this together, and together we would find our way forward. The journey wouldn't be easy, but for the first time in a long while, I felt the weight of the future in my hands, not the past. The cabin was behind me now, and with it, the ghosts of a life I no longer needed. It had been months since the day Jessica dismissed me, months since the truth had started to unravel. But I never expected this. Jessica, through her lawyer, had requested a meeting. The message was clear. She wanted closure, some resolution. But I didn't need her to fix anything anymore, not when I had already started reclaiming my life. I wasn't sure what I would feel when I saw her again. Part of me thought I'd want to scream, to rage at her for everything she had done. But that part of me didn't exist anymore. Instead, I just felt calm, almost detached. I walked into the office where we were supposed to meet. Jessica was already seated across from me, her lawyer beside her. She looked different, smaller somehow, not the confident woman I once knew. The woman who used to look at me like I was her everything. Now, she just looked tired, worn. "Hi, Nathan," she said softly, her voice quieter than I remembered. I nodded but didn't say anything. I wasn't here to talk small talk. Her lawyer cleared his throat. "This is about the future, about what happens now. Jessica wants to make amends, to find a way forward." I stared at her for a long moment. I wasn't going to make it easy for her, not this time. "Make amends?" I asked, almost laughing. "Is that what you call it, after everything?" Her lawyer shifted in his seat, but Jessica didn't seem to care. She just looked at me, her eyes pleading, almost desperate. I know I hurt you, Nathan. I'm sorry. I didn't mean for any of this to happen." Her words felt hollow. She had betrayed me in the most gut-wrenching way possible. And now, here she was, trying to make herself the victim, trying to turn the tables on me, the one who had been wronged. It was infuriating, but I didn't let it show. "No," I said quietly. "You didn't just hurt me. You destroyed everything we had." She opened her mouth to speak, but I cut her off. "You have no idea what you've done, Jessica," I continued, my voice firm now. "You didn't just lie. You didn't just cheat. You brought me into something criminal. You dragged me into your world of fraud and deception. And for what? For a man who wasn't worth the time of day? For money that you clearly didn't need?" Her eyes flickered with something. Guilt, shame, or maybe just realization. But it didn't matter. Nothing mattered anymore. "I tried to be everything you needed," I said, my voice steady. "I gave you everything I had, and you took it all without ever caring who it hurt along the way." She looked down, her hands twisting in her lap. But I wasn't finished. "I can't even look at you the same way anymore. Not after everything. Not after the lies. You've lost your chance to have any part of my life. This is over, Jessica. I'm done." Her lawyer cleared his throat again. Jessica's eyes were wet now, but I refused to feel sympathy. She didn't deserve it. "I'm sorry, Nathan. I truly am," she whispered, but I could see it in her face. She wasn't sorry for what she had done. She was sorry she got caught, sorry that everything she had built was falling apart. I stood up, not even waiting for her to speak. "Goodbye, Jessica. Don't contact me again." And with that, I walked out of the office, leaving her behind for good. As I stepped into the cool air outside, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. The closure I had been searching for didn't come from her apology. It came from me, from my decision to finally let go of the past, to close the door on everything she had done to me. I didn't need her apology. I didn't need her at all. The door was closed. And for the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe again. It had been a few weeks since Jessica's conviction, and the dust had finally settled. The whirlwind of her criminal activities, the lies, and the betrayal had all played out in front of the world, and now it was done. She was gone from my life for good. But strangely, there was no sense of satisfaction in her downfall. There was no gloating, no feeling of vindication, just relief. The FBI had contacted me to inform me that her conviction had been sealed. It wasn't a victory for me. It was simply the last loose end tied up. Her role in the financial crimes was clear, and while some still tried to spin her story in a sympathetic light, I no longer cared. The truth had come out, and that was all that mattered. As for me, I'd been focused on rebuilding my life. It wasn't easy, but it was necessary. Tyler and I had spent a lot of time together, just the two of us, slowly finding our way back to normal. He still missed his mother, still had questions I couldn't answer, but we were healing. And I was healing too. I had taken up things I had let go over the years, working out again, reading, finding time for myself, that I hadn't even realized I had been missing. For the first time in a long while, I wasn't just surviving. I was living. I had let go of the anger, of the bitterness. The anger I had carried for so long, towards Jessica, towards Chad, towards myself, had dissipated. It wasn't a single decision. It was a slow, quiet process. The other day, while I was making dinner with Tyler, I realized something important. I wasn't stuck anymore. I wasn't chained to the past, to the heartbreak, to the lies. I was free. I had let it all go, and in doing so, I had finally allowed myself to move forward. Tyler sat across from me, his eyes brighter, the weight of the past few months lifting from his shoulders too. We didn't have all the answers, but we had each other, and that was more than enough. I thought about what the future might look like. There were no guarantees, no crystal clear paths ahead, but for the first time in a long time, I felt like I could handle whatever came next. Tyler and I had built a new foundation for ourselves, one based on trust, healing, and hope. And with that, I knew we were going to be okay. The phone buzzed next to me. It was a message from one of my old friends, someone I hadn't seen in months. "Hey Nathan, long time no talk. How about that drink you owe me?" I smiled, replying with a simple, "Let's do it." It felt good, knowing that I could finally move forward, no longer bound by the past, but ready to embrace whatever came next. Tyler looked up from his plate, his face softening into a smile. "Dad, can we go to the park after dinner?" I nodded, the weight lifting off my chest. "Absolutely. Let's go." I stood up, and as I walked to the kitchen, I realized that for the first time in years, I wasn't carrying anything I didn't need. The past was behind me, the future was wide open, and that felt like freedom.